So I've defended people like Nina Turner. She's a left-wing activist who is pretty outspoken against the Democratic Party. I think having people like her is healthy for our discourse. If you are liberal or left-wing, it's good to have someone who is critical, who points out when we fumble, right? You don't want just yes men. People like Nina Turner should be more common. It shouldn't just be this cult, right? And even though I've said in the past that she is controversial, I've defended her, but I've also, shattered on her. So I feel myself pretty okay to say this, that she's really pushing me away from her from stuff like this. Like, even though this could have been posted by an intern, I don't know if she runs her Facebook. I don't even know if this is her Facebook per se, right? Like, it looks to be, but I could be wrong. But someone is using your name. And when you look at her rhetoric, this feels very much up her alley, and it sucks. And now let me explain why. So there's nothing wrong with what she posted per se, like on face value. This is a chart with true funding. This is how ICE has been funded since 2016. These are factual numbers. But I said it was disingenuous both in her comments and what I'm telling you now, because it is. When you look at this chart, many would think, okay, this is ICE funding is a bipartisan, issue. They both seem to be on the same side, Dems and Repubs. And you're not wrong. There's a discussion to be had of should the liberals be, pulling back on ICE, given what we've seen now with Donald Trump and how he's utilizing it, and it hasn't really helped. Can this funding go elsewhere? Does ICE even need to be existing, given that it was created in 2003? And so, it seems like it's a great discussion to be had about ICE as a whole, how we can even go about defunding them, given that, culturally speaking, in 2024, I don't think anyone would have ever respected you for trying to defund. But we could talk about not funding them, right? Like, I think that would have been a fair case to make as a Biden person, whatever. But I feel like that's not the discussion we're supposed to be having right now, because when I look at this chart, I think, well, this is a bullshit like framing, right? Like, now these numbers are correct, but if you look at the funding for 2025, 2026, which those numbers have been out since Trump's big, beautiful bill where he said he was going to increase ICE funding. So this post was posted just recently on the 13th of this year. So Nina's team, or whoever this is, or whoever it may be, should be knowing that this chart is outdated. And it's outdated so bad because if you look at what was recently done, even though there's been increases throughout its life of ICE, you can see that there's a huge jump from the most recent years. And to leave these out, like if they just came out the day after she posted, that's fine. But they've been out. These numbers are not new. And it's sad to see that this is what we are like we're omitting information because it makes them both look bad, when in reality, I know it sucks to give Dems credit, but this is one thing you say, well, like, oh, obviously there's now a night and day difference between the Dems and Republicans. You can argue that there wasn't before. I would argue there's more nuance to it, but fine. You know what? Maybe they were both the same. Now there isn't. Now there is no case. And people like Nina have made a career off of just shitting on the left. And it sucks because I feel like, okay, she really is then a grifter. Maybe those complaints were right about her, because you see shit like this and go, if you're omitting this stuff, why? You can just attack Trump about his ICE increase. But then that would mean you have to give credit to the Dems for never doing anything this egregious. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like they are not capable of that. I feel like people like Nina are based in their world for being critical of the left when no one else is. When in reality, I think the left is pretty critical of itself already. And I like voices like Nina, but sometimes the lady is what she is, a Jill Stein, a grifter. She's a person who is trying just to make the left bad because it's such an easy, dunk. Like, the Dems suck, don't get me wrong, but they've nowhere near has sucked as this increase. And just to see how he's saying that DC, military are going to stay in there, like stuff like that. I'm like, you're telling me that there's going to be military in DC up until after 2026 because of his stupid, crazy nonsense, his authoritarianism, his lack of respect for our elections. Like, this is a man that I'm fearful of. Whereas Biden, I'm like mad at, but I never thought in the world we would ever have this blatant, fascism. And we're just supposed to be told that these are the same thing. Like, I'm sorry, like Nina Turner is a terrible person if this is in fact something she stands by, where she's trying to paint this like night and day, there's no night and day difference. And it sucks because I've been getting a lot of pushback on this, and people keep telling me that like, no, but like it's this funding, this right here is already like, that's a death sentence to Dems. This shouldn't have been the case ever. And it's like, well, if you look at it, it's been increasing, on a pretty steady line. And for them to pull back, it just didn't seem like it was now you can do it, but before, not popular. Like Biden lost the election, like he was already trekking to unfavorability, and you're telling him to defund an organization. The headlines are going to say, let's defund the police next, huh? Take that, Biden. Like, I'm not defending any of this, but there's nuance here. Let's be fucking adults and talk about this in a smart, like, actual way. Like, how do we push forward left-wing policies? Well, first, let's make sure we don't have a fascist asshole, because we can never get left-wing policies if you have this fascistic piece of shit who controls everything. And what he does with the Supreme Court will forever stay with us. What he does with his bills, like the big beautiful bill, is going to stay with us for a while, and we have to fix it. And you can't now have left-wing ideas because you're trying to fight the right-wing ideas that have already, permeated in our culture. We're fucked. We're fucked if we keep thinking that the Dems are even similar to this, right? But, let's see if we have the next election, and let's see if this is the type of shit that they're still going to keep pushing. If you see this, if you feel like they're grifting, it feels like there's really no other way to spin it. They probably are, which sucks.